Крошечный поселок, затерянный среди песков с непонятным названием Уртабулак. Здесь, в одной из скважин газового месторождения, воспламенился фонтанирующий газ. 1074 дня полыхал этот факел.
Было решено перекрыть ствол аварийной скважины подземным взрывом ядерного заряда. После разработки соответствующего проекта по соседству с огненным факелом началось бурение наклонной скважины. В эту скважину намечалось опустить на глубину 1500 метров ядерный заряд необходимой формы и мощности. Взрыв должен был состояться в пластичных породах под газонепроницаемыми пластами. Опускание ядерного заряда в скважину не представляет какой-либо опасности для людей. Программный автомат подрыва включен. Машины и другая техника отведены с боевой площадки за 5-километровую зону. Факел и ядерный заряд остались наедине друг с другом. Последние секунды перед взрывом.
До взрыва осталось 5 секунд. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Это подземный толчок подбросил нашу камеру. Смотрите, газовый факел стал заметно уменьшаться. Дозиметрическая служба не обнаружила признаков радиоактивности ни в воздухе, ни на земле вокруг аварийной скважины. На Урта-Булаке наступила непривычная тишина. Рев огня, бушевавшего 3 года подряд, прекратился навсегда.
Что же произошло там под землей? Ударная волна ядерного взрыва сдвинула пласты земли, которые перекрыли скважину. Вот и все. Факела нет. Осталось лишь зацементировать бывшую аварийную скважину.
I'm going to introduce Dmitry Khalazov. He's a former officer in the Defense Ministry of the former USSR. He presents his book to the world today, and he presents it with 2 credentials. Firstly, he was a technician in the field of nuclear munitions. Secondly, he's acknowledged, apparently by the FBI, as a material witness. Dmitry, tell us something about yourself.
Good morning. Okay, I was a commissioned officer at the 12th Chief Directorate of the Defense Ministry of the Soviet Union. And the 12th Chief Directorate was an organization responsible in the Soviet Union for nuclear testing and technical maintenance of the entire nuclear arsenal of the state. From there, I got some experience in regard to nuclear munitions, as well as a certain knowledge concerning the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center in New York.
Well, let's come to that, Dmitry. Do you have anything to identify yourself as an officer in that directorate?
Unfortunately, I'm not at my home in Russia now, and most of the documents are at my home. I might have a few. You know, one of my photographs, the color photograph in the military uniform, is in the book. And I have another couple of photographs.
This is you in the uniform of the 12th Directorate.
Okay, let me explain it to you. You know, the 12th Chief Directorate, because it's considered to be a nuclear arsenal of the state, they usually wore gunnery uniform, like artillery uniform, as being arsenal. But I used to serve in some smaller department of the 12th Chief Directorate, which they call Special Control Service. And in that particular department, they wear aviation uniform. That's why my uniform is like a pilot uniform. You know, that this was tradition from the beginning of this service, because the first nuclear explosions, the first nuclear tests were in atmosphere. That's why the control service use airborne flying laboratories based on some cargo planes to fly and to collect data from atmospheric nuclear explosions. And since then they have the tradition of wearing the aviation uniform. So when the nuclear testing moved underground, they no longer need to use the flying laboratories, because they use some other means like seismic control. But the uniform is still remain. That's why it's an aviation uniform.
So this was a highly specialized unit.
Yes, yes. It's not actually a unit, it's quite a big organization which has a lot of military units of its own. It's like a network.
And within that unit, what was your job?
When I studied in the military college, I was released as a communication engineer, and I was appointed as an officer within the 12th Chief Directorate first, and then transferred to the Special Control Service, where I used to serve about 5 years. And my position was a chief of shift, which was responsible for receiving and collecting data from the periphery laboratories concerning nuclear explosions. And my duty was just to, how to say it? I was like a chief of the shift, And my duty was to collect the things and to pass it to the operational officers, and to superiors.
That's a very responsible position.
Yes, it's a very responsible position because all the how do you say, recognition of the nuclear test of the enemy of the USSR actually come through my hands. I was the chief.
I understand. Where were you born? Let's talk about your early time.
I was born in some small city near Moscow, about 40 kilometers from Moscow, named Golitsino.
And when did you leave the service?
I quitted the military service at 1992, at the time of the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So it means about the time when the Soviet army ceased to exist and it was recreated as a Russian army or Ukrainian army or whatever other armies. At that time I just decided to quit the military service whatsoever.
Understood. But during that 5 years in that special unit,
Yes.
you're interfacing both with technicians exploding nuclear devices underground, and you're interfacing with senior officers with the data from those tests. Is that right?
Yes, because the 12th Chief Directorate was the organization primarily responsible for nuclear testing of the Soviet Union. I knew a lot of officers who were involved in that, and I was friendly with many of them. And because I served in particularly the Soviet nuclear intelligence, which was responsible for detecting nuclear explosions of the various adversaries of the Soviet Union, I also have experience of the nuclear testing of the others.
And is this your official?
Yeah, that is one of the very few military documents that I managed to keep with me. It's, in here I'm still young, and it was from the military college, one of the documents.
Understood. Thank you.
That-
You describe yourself in your book as a big fish in the story of September the 11th. I believe that it's clear in the book that the chart that you exhibit puts you on the same page as some very dangerous figures.
You understand. You mean this
Yes,
one?
Yes.
Well,
Take us through the chart.
you know, it would not be decent probably to say that I am a big fish. I'm not. But the American FBI believes so.
Okay.
So this definition does not come from me. It comes from the Americans.
Okay.
So as you can see in this chart, the Americans put me in the same line with notorious terrorists, the September 11 hijackers, the 2002 Bali bombers, like Mr. Hambali, with Mr. Hani Hamoir, who is accused of supplying the passports for the September 11 hijackers, and even with a certain Dr. Haji Mohammed Husseini. As you can see that I'm next to him in the same row, who in opinion of the American is the biggest fish in this network.
And this document was prepared by the FBI for the Thai authorities.
Yes, because the Americans attempted to obtain my extradition to America from Thailand in the 2003.
Yes.
And this document, this one, it was prepared by the FBI for their Thai colleagues.
You were arrested and charged with supplying a passport.
Well, yes, I was arrested for the extradition request of the United States primarily.
Right.
But because something was not ready with the official package of the documents related to extradition, they have to accuse me of something else, just for the meantime, to win the time.
Right.
So they accused me of supplying the fake passport for Mr. Hambali, the chief Bali bomber and the chief of the Jemaah Islamiyah organization.
Right. So, and that's a charge that you've always denied.
Yes, of course.
And you've never been convicted of any of them?